Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Buckeye Breakdown. I am Matthew Warner. Very excited to be back today after having a week off last week. I am going solo this week after Owen took over the reins last week. And we've got a game to recap with the Iowa game on Saturday, and then what everybody wants to talk about, which is the Oregon matchup in Eugene, night game on Saturday night. So we'll go ahead and kind of kick things off with Iowa. The Buckeyes struggle immensely with the Iowa Hawkeyes, or at least that is what I was led to believe based on articles from ESPN, lumping us in with the rest of the nation in a week where you saw Alabama lose to Vandy, you saw Tennessee lose to Arkansas, Miami has to pull off a miracle to beat Cal, Missouri loses to A&M, Michigan loses to Washington, USC loses to Minnesota. Somehow ESPN found a way to lump Ohio State's 35-7 win over Iowa in with that game. Now, we'll talk about the slow start, but for the most part, it's a pretty dominant victory. The only touchdown Iowa scores is when we have our second team in late in the fourth quarter, like 8 minutes left in the fourth quarter. We've already, called the dogs off a little bit. It's the only touchdown they score. You put up, 28 points in the second half. You forced 3 turnovers. Like, it was, by all means, a dominant performance by the Buckeyes. So I want to start off with a slow start because I was disappointed. Buckeyes go into the half up 7-0. And you just had kind of that nasty feeling of like we're supposed to have this super high-powered offense. We've got these weapons everywhere. We brought in this new QB with Will Howard to get out of these kinds of situations. We saw it too many times last year where teams stuck around. The offense didn't seem to find a groove quick enough. And this kind of felt like that a little bit. So 7-0 going into the half. Today, I went back and watched the game over again. Being up 7-0 with the way we moved the ball in the first half is shocking. Outside of the last 4 minutes of that half, our offense did whatever it wanted, whenever it wanted. Will Howard put together a great first drive to get us up 7-0. You have the Jeremiah Smith fumble, which he's a freshman, but it's a mistake you just can't make. Not only was it a fumble, but you have an offensive lineman who could have just swatted the ball out of bounds, got the first down, kept the drive moving. Keep in mind, Will Howard's still perfect at this point, has not thrown an incompletion, has hit some guys in stride. Next possession, ball's moving pretty well. It's a, opportunity to go pick up a first down. Will Howard slips on a cutback, just lost his footing, would have been in first down and some more. So end up going forward on 4th and 2 there. I did not like the play call from Chip Kelly, running kind of that QB power. It felt really predictable in that situation. You've got weapons all over the place. You have Quinshon Judkins and Travion Henderson. I like having a back in the backfield there to make it seem like you have more than maybe the option of just a QB power or a straight throw. And then we get kind of into that 4-minute mark where things went downhill for the Buckeyes offense. But looking back on it, after I watched it, offense looked pretty damn good outside of a turnover and a slip. So I was shocked watching it back now, knowing that we had won 35-7, how little I was frustrated with the offense compared to watching it in real time with maybe like 6 or 7 Miller Lights in my system. I do want to talk about the 4 minutes before we went into the half. Will Howard did not play great. He had a missed deep ball, could have been a touchdown to Jeremiah Smith. Very next play, 3rd and 8, really forces one to the outside to Brandon Ennis. Iowa gets the ball back. Our defense just plays downhill and aggressive, gets him the ball back with a chance to go put some points on the board before the half so that you're not just going in up a score. And he throws that terrible interception, completely underthrown, really just kind of looked it into Egbuka the entire time. The kind of throws that you cannot afford to make, if you're playing against an offense that has a relative pulse, which we're getting ready to go into. And then the second half happens. Buckeyes absolutely dominated from start to finish in that second half, offensively and defensively. I thought Will Howard played phenomenally on the offensive side of the football. The throw to Egbuka for the one score on the left-hand side of the end zone was just a perfectly placed ball. He hit Jeremiah Smith on a deep ball. And then obviously the one-handed, just absolutely filthy grab from Jeremiah Smith as he's kind of stiff-arming a guy midair to make a one-handed grab is just insane. The guy has such a knack for changing the momentum in like a big way. We saw it last week with Michigan State. The touchdown that's been played over and over is the one Devin Brown threw, but he had another disgusting one-handed grab on the sideline that kind of jump-started that possession in the first place. He seems to just have that electric feel to him where he makes big plays when the offense absolutely needs something to happen. I also love the fact that he came out, scored, played a pretty darn good second half after the fumble. Like I said, freshman, mistakes are going to happen. But God, are we blessed to be able to watch that young man for the next 3 years. There's a lot of buzz around some of these young receivers in college football. I put my money down that we have the best one, and it's not even close. I have had a couple comments back and forth on this. Buckeyes escaped 35-7. Really struggled, as ESPN alluded to. I'm looking at this. It's a 3-1 Iowa team. Obviously, we're at home. That 3-1 Iowa team, their only loss on the year came at the hands of Iowa State, which people kind of shrugged their shoulders and said, Iowa State's not very good, so Iowa can't be very good. AP poll rankings come out today, and what do you know? Iowa State is sitting at number 11, which is Iowa's only other loss, 1 point in a 20-19 game. So all of a sudden, Iowa looks a little bit better on paper than what people maybe were giving them credit for coming into the game. I think Iowa's a pretty darn good football team, especially on the defensive side of the ball. They have a better offense this year than they've had in years past. With McNamara, they've got a decent run game. To get out of there with a 35-7 win and to not have your starters playing for the most of the fourth quarter, I don't know how you can see that as anything else but a really positive. I understand the slow start is very frustrating, but as I look towards, a game like, Oregon next week, man, I feel good about 35-7 resting our starters. I understand the start was not what we wanted, but we're going to have some fresh legs as we head into to Eugene. So we'll go there. I'm going to say this too. We're going to do like a tight 25 here, maybe 30. We'll see. I can ramble forever. So we head to Eugene this weekend. This is probably one of the most exciting matchups regular season outside of the game that I can remember. You have a in-conference 2v3. There's history in this matchup with the national championship, and then the last time that these teams faced off on 9/11, which was my dear friend Mason's wedding. Oregon got the best of C.J. Stroud and the Buckeyes in a pretty high-powered offensive game. I think C.J. Stroud had like 500 some yards or something. It was ridiculous. But so there's a little bit of history, and you have two really good football teams. It's not going to be the matchup that this once would have been. I think people tend to still have this perception of Oregon that they are the Chip Kelly Ducks. And they're not quite that. They still have a very good offense. Don't get me wrong. They have phenomenal receivers. They run the ball well. Dylan Gabriel is going to be good. But defensively, they're really good. Both of these teams have yet to give up 200 yards in the air, which in college football is pretty darn impressive. Granted, not like they've played anybody with super high-powered offenses on either side. The only team that Oregon's really played that has a decent or high-scoring offense would be Boise State with, Ashton Jeanty. And there's nobody else in the country that has an Ashton Jeanty, and the Buckeyes might be the closest second with their two-headed monster with Judkins and Travion Henderson. So, was looking around, kind of doing some research on, what is Oregon's beat writer saying? What are their thoughts heading into this game? And I think they have a very similar kind of feeling towards this game as we do, is that the defense feels ready. They feel very confident in their defense. They're excited about where they're at there. And we feel very good about our defense. We haven't given up a ton of points this year. Like I said, haven't given up 200 yards in the air. So this is very much, I think, going to be a dogfight that is going to have to be won in the trenches. And I think the team that can establish the run and dominate up front is going to have the edge in this game. If I'm Oregon, I'm coming into this matchup and saying, Will Howard, you've got to beat us with your arm. We're going to keep everything in front. We're going to make sure and try and contain Travion and Quinshon Judkins as best as we possibly can. But that's a tall task with how the Buckeyes run and with how Chip Kelly schemes guys into open space. So while they feel pretty confident, I think they're confident up front. I think their linebackers are pretty solid. I think that they're going to have a chance to give us a little bit more difficulty getting that run established like we have so far in all of these games. It's been pretty easy going for these guys to get out in open space and, break out those 10, 11, 12 yards, or, if you're Quinshon Judkins, 84 yards. I think that's going to be a little tough going, and I think Will Howard's going to have to make plays. He's shown that he can do it. He's had some phenomenal throws. He's also had some throws that are questionable, to say the least. 3 straight games with an interception. All 3 of them pretty bad. Just bad throws. Those are the kind of mistakes that are going to really, really put the Buckeyes in a bad spot. So he's going to have to take care of the ball. And I think they're going to challenge him to hit a deep ball. He hasn't shown that ability to really let it fly down the field, hit a guy in stride. And I think all Buckeye fans right now are wanting to see that. There was the Jeremiah Smith long ball that we caught last week, still a little bit underthrown. If he puts another yard on it, Jeremiah Smith walks into the end zone with no issues at all. Doesn't matter. He still scored that possession anyways because he's absolutely phenomenal. But they're going to force Will Howard to make some plays. I've heard this comment now from a couple different people about Will Howard kind of feeling like Kyle McCord last year. And I just don't see it. The offense feels so much more fluent and productive with Will Howard compared to what we saw at times last year with Kyle McCord. I know Kyle McCord is having a great time at Syracuse right now, having a really good year. Dude is slinging it. I think he threw it 62 times last week, which is absolutely insane. But last year there were struggles. There were significant struggles, especially early on in the year. We started off the year with a 20-3 win against a not very good Indiana team. Outside of the Notre Dame game that we won 17-14, struggled with Maryland. There were so many games last year where it felt like the defense really had to put on their big boy pants, carry us across the finish line, and we had enough weapons offensively that we would put points up on the board. It now kind of feels like if the defense forces a turnover or a 3-and-out, you pay for it immediately. And the run game is a significant help there. I'm not naive to the fact that obviously having Quinshon Judkins and Travion compared to Travion, who was banged up at times, Chip Trainum, like those guys, it's night and day difference. You can see it. And I think Chip Kelly bringing some of that kind of offensive-minded prowess into the run game, which he's been successful at for his entire career, you can tell it's kind of showing. But the McCord-Will Howard thing, I'm just not sold that they're the same player, that they're going to give that Kyle McCord would be playing at the same level as Will Howard. I mentioned the slow start for Will Howard or for the Ohio State offense last week. Will Howard didn't throw an incompletion until 4 minutes left in the second quarter. He's been highly productive. He's been efficient. He's, for the most part, found the open guys, made the right plays outside of a handful of throws that I can remember. I do have the kind of side-by-side stats on it. McCord through 5 games. I took out Notre Dame because I can already hear people saying, well, that was a ranked matchup. Ohio State hasn't played by ranked. McCord threw for 321 yards a game, 13 touchdowns through 5 games, 65% completion, 32 passes a game, and 39.8 points a game for the Ohio State offense through 5 games. Will Howard is throwing for 250. He's got 12 touchdowns in the air, 4 on the ground, which is another factor that Will Howard brings to this offense. 72% completion percentage, only 26 passes a game, and 46 points a game. It's important to remember, too, that some of those stats are going to be hindered by the fact that Will Howard has not played a complete game yet, because every game has been a blowout where we have second, third string guys in on offense. So I'm not sold on it. I think he's having a very good year so far. I think there's obviously things to clean up. Mistakes have been made, and are some real concerns about his ability to, throw the deep ball accurately and find guys open like Jeremiah Smith, who's going to be open. So I'm not sold on that argument. I did, ahead of this game, ask if there was any questions. I have a couple mailbag questions. So let me dip into those real quick. Let's see. First question is, how dare you? So that's not good. Let me see something here. I think I may be having some audio issues. Never mind, I'm not. All good. Anyways, so did have a couple questions pop up here. The first one was, what do you think Ohio State's plan will be to keep Dillon Gabriel in the pocket? Dillon Gabriel's kind of a true pass pro with the ability to extend plays with his legs. He's done it kind of everywhere he's went, and has that ability that once he's outside the pocket, he can make some things happen with his legs, but also gives those really speedy receivers the ability to get open and buy some more time. I think with the interior of Ohio State's defense, with Tyleek and Ty Hamilton, paired with Jack Sawyer and JT Tuimoloau, you're going to have a lot of athleticism, and they're going to do their best to keep everything in front of them. I'm not super concerned that Dillon Gabriel is going to carve us up in any way with his legs. So I think they'll be perfectly fine. In that regard, I don't have a ton of concern there. I don't think it's going to be something where there's a spy or anything. I just don't think he has enough of a threat with his legs that Ohio State's going to be overly concerned about it. You've got a guy that, is trying his darndest to prove that he belongs in the NFL, that he can be a pocket passer. I don't see this being, his game where he's going to do a ton with his legs. Could be wrong, but I think they'll contain him pretty well there. Next question here was, if Oregon stacks the box, how confident am I with Howard beating Oregon in the air? And I think this is a real possibility. The one thing that I will say is if their game plan is going to be to sell out on the run, that means they have to sacrifice something somewhere else. And that could mean having to play man-to-man coverage against Igbuka, Jeremiah Smith, Carnell Tate. And that is a very tall task for any corner, not just college corners. Any corner around would struggle one-on-one with those three guys. If Oregon is able to slow down the run, and it does put Will Howard in more of these third and long, third and 7 to 10, I think that could be bad for the Buckeyes. He's been really good in that 3rd to 5, 3rd and 3, 3rd to 5, giving them the ability to kind of, decide if they want to stick with the run, if they want to, air it out a little bit. It would concern me a little bit if they're backed up into more of that 3rd and long, but I still have confidence in him. I have confidence in him, but I have more confidence in the fact that the receivers are very, very good and they're going to get open. It's just going to be Will Howard making the right reads, making the right plays, and I think he'll do that. I think he's up for the challenge. It's the reason Ohio State brought him in. It's the reason he won this quarterback battle, and I think he'll be okay there. All right, I've got this one, a couple more. If it's tied 14-14 in the 4th quarter, who has the advantage? This is a little tough. 14-14 means that the defenses have really done their job. If Ohio State has Oregon with the ball and they only have 14 points in the 4th quarter, they've done some things right. Oregon's going to put points on the board. Ohio State should put points on the board. If it's tied up in this situation, I still think Ohio State has the advantage. And I'm going to say that because of the defense. You're talking about a defense that has everybody back with the addition of Caleb Downs. There's just a lot of veteran presence out there that I think is going to have the ability to step up, make big plays, those impact plays, and give the Buckeyes a chance to win if it's all tied up in the 4th quarter. That's why I lean a little bit more towards us. But 14-14 in the 4th, it's anybody's game. I do have a couple more questions here. This one comes from a very longtime listener, Hayden Schlechte. If the question is, both teams were supposed to have had the best receiving cores in college, who has the better receivers in this head-to-head? I don't really have to think about this too much. I think it's Ohio State. You've got Jeremiah Smith, who would be a first-round draft pick if he left today. You have Emeka Ibuka, who more than likely is going to be a first-round draft pick. Guy had 3 touchdowns last week, and is probably going to set quite a few Ohio State receiving records by the time his career is done here. And how many games would it be? Let's see. 10 games once we have that national championship. And then Carnell Tate, Brandon Ennis, like that third receiver is really where I think we set ourselves apart, because Carnell Tate would probably be the number one option for most college football programs outside of, the programs that have first, second round pick, NFL pick on their roster. I think Carnell Tate is incredibly underrated. He's been very consistent and solid all year. So I give the Buckeyes the nod on that one as well. I just think that if you would have asked me at the beginning of the year without seeing Jeremiah Smith play an actual college down, I would have probably said it was closer. Now that I've seen the kid play, I don't really have any questions about it. I think not only is he probably the Buckeyes' best receiver, but I think he might be a top 5 receiver in college football today. Maybe top 3. I don't know. Okay. 2 more questions. I'm going to wrap this up. Do the Buckeyes come out hot on Saturday and ready to hit the ground running, or do we have another slow start and make those halftime adjustments? I hope that you've got a locker room full of guys that are fired up, that know they didn't come out very hot in the first half, which has been kind of a little bit of a consistent thing throughout the year. I would hope Ryan Day and Chip Kelly, Jim Knowles have those guys revved up, ready to go, because Oregon does that. Oregon has played phenomenal in the first half, for the last couple weeks. And then they kind of let the foot off the gas in the second half, where it's been the Buckeyes are kind of hanging around a little bit. And then all of a sudden it's like you snap your fingers. They're up 4 scores 7 years ago. And the game's over. So it's kind of an interesting matchup of 2 teams that have done a little bit of the opposite of each other. I think you're going to see 2 teams come out and play very hard, good football for 4 quarters. It's what it's going to take to win this game. The one thing that concerns me is Ohio State hasn't had to play 4 quarters yet. So what does Tyleik Williams look like 4 minutes left in the fourth quarter in a tie game? We haven't had to see that yet. What does it actually look like? So we'll see there. I've got one. Actually, I do have one more. This is another Will Howard, kind of Kyle McCord comparison. The comment is, I see a lot of similarities between McCord and Howard, and we know what McCord's decision-making did to us in the first half of the Michigan game last year. Can Will come out decisive and effective? I think the answer is yes. I think he's been decisive, and I think he's been very effective all year. There's, like I said, a handful of mistakes that he's made, and I'm not going to be the least bit surprised if he makes one on Saturday. It just can't be a complete game wrecker like the interception McCord threw against Michigan. It's just got to be a little bit of a cleaner game from Will Howard. I think there's going to be opportunities for him to get one over top. I think if there's a weakness in this Oregon defense, just from everything I've read, it's maybe those safeties. You saw the big play in the first drive of the Michigan State game where a guy gets beat over top, is an inch away from scoring, and then Aiden Childs fumbles on the 1, all of that fun stuff. But so there's going to be opportunities. You're going to see Jeremiah Smith and Emeka Ibuka, find some space over the top. I'm hoping that Will Howard steps up, kind of proves a little bit that he has the ability to make those throws. I think they're going to be there. But I think for the most part, you're going to see him make the throws he's made all years, those really good decisions in the RPOs of, do I hand it off? Do I hit the 4-yard slant that Jeremiah Smith ran for, 10 yards? I think he's going to make those decisions. I think Will Howard's going to have a really good football game. I think Travion and Quinshon Judkins are going to have a lot of opportunities to dominate this run attack. Ashton Jeanty had 240 yards against these guys. I would like to think that the tandem of Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins can give them some similar issues on the ground, but we will see. It is going to be a number 2 versus number 3 matchup as the Buckeyes head to Eugene. I'm excited. Night game probably will be several beers deep before kickoff even happens, as I will be drinking away all of the nerves. But excited to watch it. We will be back Monday to recap the game. Hopefully it will be a little bit more of a fun recap than what we've had for the first 5 weeks here. Expecting a little bit of a closer game. Buckeyes are favored by 2.5. I think it's actually up to 3.5 now on the road, which is interesting. But we'll see how it all unfolds. My prediction is it's going to be somewhere around like the 31 to 24, 31 to 21 type of game in the Buckeyes' favor. I just think our offense is high-powered enough and our defense is going to be revved up, ready to go, and have that big impact in Eugene. So we'll see. Excited to get it going. This has been the Buckeye Breakdown solo podcast with Matt Warner. We will see you next week.